I'm going to bring us into a opening, centering, and meditation, and then I'm going to put on a 6-minute piece of music. It kind of speaks to what we're going to be talking about tonight. So we could start with that. Just slip in and relax. How about now? All right, good. Hi, Dina. Glad you're here. Just take a deep breath and let's all just be present in this. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Who knew there was such an obvious, deep spiritual truth running through the culture? And we just kind of sing it in that way. And the more I move along the spiral, the more I come to realize that the truth of it. It's a dream. I wasn't sure, again, as usual, what I was going to say here, but I've got some pieces. Probably play something by Edgar Tolle talking a little bit about it. There's a 2-3 minute part of Marianne Williamson referencing something from Course in Miracles about it that's very, very interesting. And I may actually pull out section 3 of my book that I'm writing and read it to you tonight, because there may be some relevant parts in that. Let me start with this interesting one. This little snippet is from a book called Emmanuel Speaks, and Emmanuel was Ram Dass's spook friend who didn't have a body anymore, didn't need to incarnate, but spoke through a woman named Pat Rodegast, and was truly wise. I mean, Ram Dass points out just because somebody doesn't have a body doesn't make them wise all of a sudden. And so, but Emmanuel was one of these beings. And so I was reading from his book a section on dying, and I'll read you this short snippet. It says, "Let me tell you a story about dying. You live a lifetime. At the end of it, you say to those around your deathbed, 'What a long life. Why, I lived near 90 whole years. Do you know how much I did?' And then you die. And you wake up and ask, 'How long was I gone?' The being of light who is with you answers, 'We hardly noticed you were gone at all. You just sat down and dozed off for a second, and here you are again. What kind of dream did you have this time?'" Let that sink in. Just let it sink in. Read it again. "You live a lifetime. At the end of it, you say to those around your deathbed, 'What a long life. Why, I lived 90 whole years. Do you know how much I did?' And then you die. You wake up and ask, 'How long was I gone?' The being of light who is with you answers, 'We hardly noticed you were gone at all. You just sat down and dozed off for a second, and here you are again. What kind of a dream did you have this time?'" It's really interesting, this state that we're in, this plane. It sure seems real, doesn't it? And everybody is walking around and telling everybody how real it is. But is it? And I'm not trying to get wig you out and you're not going to be able to sleep tonight. What I'm asking about is, what's the nature of this plane that we are perceiving right now? We know the senses can deceive us. We know from the wisdom of the Hindu tradition, this whole idea of Maya, living in a house of mirrors, essentially, that is occluding our ability to really directly perceive reality. So what's going on here, really? When I was doing some work with Don Rosenthal, my therapist, MDMA therapist and teacher in that regard, I was in a session with him, and we were going through whatever kind of thing from my life where I was processing. And he said something that really struck me. He said, "This may be a dream, so we might as well make it a happy dream." And so if it's a dream or not, I think that statement is the most functional piece of wisdom about it, is that we're interacting here at some level. And we get to, well, I'm going to come to this question. Are we the dream character or are we the dream creator? Where's our attention? Where's our perception? Where do we experience moment-to-moment waking reality from? What kind of a position? I was going to stick this on the end, but just because I said what I just said, I'm going to pull up this very short Marianne Williamson clip to play, because I believe it will lead us to an interesting next piece of this. Again, you guys tell me if you can't hear her.
Beyond it. Remember, the Course in Miracles says, there's a line where it says, in the Bible it says that Adam fell asleep, but nowhere does it say that he woke up. So the state of humanity is in this sleep. We are not awakened to who we are. The Course in Miracles says that in our state of sleep, obviously nightmares have come. The Course in Miracles says there has been no mass awakening, but it is time to initiate one. Now, some people want to go from the bad dreams to a fully awakened state. That's not the teaching of the Course. The Course in Miracles says you must go from a bad dream to a happy dream. After you have turned the bad dream into a happy dream, then you can awaken. What does that mean? You have to get rid of war. When you have a world that is at peace, it will still be an illusion. It will still be a dream. When everybody's getting along, but it's a bunch of bodies on the planet, it will still be a dream, but it will be the happy dream. And that will be the path to a complete awakened state, which when the illusion will not be needed anymore. The Course does say once you've completely transcended, you won't even need to be in a body anymore. I've had people say to me, I'm really worried about doing this course because if I really get it right, it says I won't even have to be on the planet anymore. Every time I've heard someone say that, my thought has been, don't worry, you're not that close.
This is the piece that really caught my eye to this afternoon. What Don said, we're in a dream state, might as well make it a happy dream. We're not the victim of this, what's going on here. We're the creator. The way we hold our energy field, what we project, what the thoughts that we use, where we place our attention, all of that factors into what gets created here. But then Marianne pointed out here a really, really very important functional piece of this, and that is a lot of people are having a nightmare. A lot of people in an unhappy dream, which is essentially to the degree that we're holding on to places inside of us and withholding love is the degree to which suffering is happening, okay? And so people just want to say, a lot of people, clients come to me, I want to get rid of all this bad stuff. And I say, okay, which arm of yours do you want to throw away? Because it's all you. It's your energy field you're responsible for. So what they do, they want to just get it away. But what Marianne pointed out is you can't awaken from the bad dream. You move from the bad dream into the happy dream, and then from there you awaken. And that totally strikes me as imperatively true. And from an energy standpoint, it makes perfect sense. Because awakening, if you were to measure somebody's frequency, right? I mean, we could measure frequency of various objects and things like that, but imagine you could just actually get a relative number of where somebody's frequency is. Let's put it on a scale of 1 to 100, right? And so if it's 100, you are like the highest vibration. If it's at 1, you're at the lowest vibration. And so the ascension, the awakening, is literally the increase in the vibration of your pattern, of your frequency. And so now, the lower frequency, the lower vibration is basically where fear lives, and all of fear's manifestations: anger, resentment, victimhood, poverty. Now I want to be careful about that one, because it's not like wealthy people are more evolved than poor people. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying is all the manifestations of the ego. Lack is a better term than poverty, right? Anger, resentment, bitterness, self-absorption, the whole thing is low frequency. And you don't, when you ascend, you don't ascend from there. That stuff is what's holding down your frequency. In other words, if we can let go of whatever it is that we're holding, from this life, from another life, from the intergenerational stream that we talk about, that we inherit, it comes through, and we're, for whatever reason, some part of us is still clinging to certain parts of this whole thing. It's unfinished, wounded business. That's one obvious way that occurs. It's a mass hypnosis that we don't realize we're holding on to certain lower frequency beliefs that are so endemic and so accepted that you would think they would put you in the mental asylum if you didn't believe it, right? That's weighing down the frequency, weighing down our energy field, because we're just holding these lower frequency things. Now, could we, hypothetically, and I guess actually eventually, release everything of that nature? Our natural state would be to go straight to 100, because this is home. This is what we are. And so we're in this dream state where we're learning to work with the creation energy. I mean, that's one of the things it feels like to me. And we're learning to choose love over fear. And I think that's what the setup of the curriculum of virtually everything on this plane is. And so the ascension that Marianne was talking about is you don't go from anger, resentment, fear, all of that stuff to bliss or to home. You work with what's here, and you learn to forgive and release and forgive and release and forgive and release the nature of the confused, self-absorbed ego that's creating all this mischief. And as you do, the forgiveness is the letting go. That's what forgiveness really is. And then, but the ego, which makes a cheap copy of everything about reality and then weaponizes it, takes forgiveness and turns it into a different definition entirely to keep you from forgiving. Because the moment you forgive, that's the end of the ego's hold over that. So it's very invested in keeping you clinging to these lower frequency objects. And so what it says is, oh no, I can't forgive. I'm not going to forgive them. That means I condone what they did. That's just total crap. The truth, the vibrational truth, is forgiveness is simply letting go so love can flow through you again as you. That's it. So, and because a big part of this dream state is for us to learn to work at these levels, make conscious, intentional choice to put our attention at source instead of ego, our vibration comes up. We're all of a sudden in alignment with the infinite power of coherence, which allows us to let go more of these things. And then we start moving into this virtuous cycle. And what's going on is, as that's happening, because the external world is nothing more than a reflection of your own vibration, of what's the makeup of your vibration. Because of that, as this process evolves and your field starts to lighten up, but because you're letting go, you're forgiving, you're working, choosing love with these heavy objects, you become lighter. And then what you create in your life as the reflection of what you are comes back as a happier dream. Happier dream. So now you're in an ascension spiral, you're working it, you understand the dynamics of reality creation and the nature of the dream state of this plane, which is made up of projections. There's the dream, I'll come back to that in a moment. And then you're now in this happy dream space, which means your vibration is now maybe, 65, 75, 80, 85. So you're moving, and it's from that motion, that flow of energy vibrationally, that we complete, if you want to call it that, the ascension process, that the whole thing goes. And so that's what she was talking about, that the Course talks about. It's friggin' brilliant.
Yes, sir.
It's brilliant. And so we are in a dream state. I'm going to read section 3 from what I'm writing these days. And hopefully I'm not self-serving here, and that in fact it is going to be helpful for you to hear this. Okay. This is section 3, part 1 of the book, called The Separation That Never Happened. Perception is not the thing itself, it is our interpretation of it. Ramana Maharshi speaks from the Upanishads when he talks about how we have mistaken a rope for a snake. We then run in fear and spend an enormous amount of our creative life energy protecting ourselves from that snake. But was the snake actually real? Did it ever exist? Or was it simply a mirage, a distorted perception, a figment of imagination? This is what Hinduism calls Maya, or what I call the apparent trap, the misreading of appearances. The same can be said for this separate self that we seem to experience and take for real. Let's look at this from the most rational, logical, non-woo-woo level and ask this very simple question. Is it actually possible for you, for anyone, for anything, to be separate from all there is? How could it be? Because if that something was separate from all there is, where would it go? All there is all there is. Course in Miracles describes this world as a dream, a projection of the mind, rooted in the idea of separation. Ramana Maharshi speaks of this when he says, there is no difference between dream and waking, except that the dream is short and the waking is long. As such, this misinterpretation is no more real than anything that seemed to happen in last night's dream. What was that dream? Nothing more than a projection of the ego mind rooted in the idea of separation. Could it be that our whole lives are lived in fear of a rope? If separation never happened, why does it feel so immediate and embodied? How does the appearance of a separate center arise in the first place? This inquiry is not merely philosophical for me, it became experiential. In a moment of expanded clarity, I saw this ball of light floating in front of me, and I knew with certainty that this light is me. I then questioned, if I'm that, then what is this here that's perceiving that? What is this apparent distance between the two? What I got was, this is what happens when consciousness reflects upon itself. The act of reflection produces an artifact, a center point from which observation seems to occur. In simpler terms, awareness looks at itself and an observer seems to appear. But this I is not an entity. It is a byproduct of self-reflecting awareness. Your current feeling of being a me, sitting in a chair, reading these words, is the same artifact of awareness reflecting on itself. Therefore, the problem is not the appearance of this phantom, but mistaking it for something real. When identification locks onto it, the story of separation forms, and what was an artifact begins to feel like an actual divide. So what exactly is this separate self? As we will explore later, it is a misidentification. As Nisargadatta says, we have mistaken what we are not for what we are. We have mistaken what we are not for what we are. This causes suffering. The correction, then, is not behavioral, but perceptual. Course in Miracles defines a miracle as a change in perception. In that sense, all healing is of the mind. The problem is not that a separation story appears. That's just what the ego mind does. The problem is that we take the story to be real. The ego misreads experience, we believe what it tells us, and then we confirm it with each other. Through shared agreement, the mirage appears more solid. This is not merely social agreement, it is entrainment. And we will look at the physics of entrainment later on in the book. Because we all are already one field, this misidentification spreads through resonance. One encapsulated self creates conditions that pull others into the same frequency. No conspiracy required. The dream becomes consensus reality. Through the most natural of mechanisms, we attune to the dominant signal. And the dominant signal for most of human history has been separation. This is exemplified in the Adam and Eve story. The encapsulated separate self is a mirage. This is the ego. The obvious question then is, if the ego is a mirage, then why care about it? Because while separation is not real, its effects are. A mirage you don't recognize as a mirage will lead you off the road every time. This is the apparent trap in action. So the loop is mistaken identification gives way to belief, which gives way to perception, which gives way to reinforcement of the re-identification, and this is a loop. And people reinforce it with each other. Belief shapes perception, and perception stabilizes belief. But both are downstream of a more fundamental error, the assumption that we are a separate self. This is why the work is not about adopting better beliefs. Beliefs are surface expressions of a deeper identification. As long as identity remains unquestioned, new beliefs merely rearrange the furniture in the jail cell, to quote Braun. What dissolves the loop is not belief replacement, but recognition of the mistaken identity. The moment we see through the separate self, our identification with it releases, and we are left with our true self. Awakening is becoming lucid within the dream of the ego, and eventually recognizing who is dreaming.
Yahoo. Thank you.
Yeah. Could it be that we live our lives in fear of a rope, of a snake, but we're actually in fear of a rope?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please, Dina.
Okay, so how do you know for certain when something is your perception or something that is real?
The simple and the true answer is all you see is your perception. All you see is your perception, including the way things move in the outer world. Because right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 online, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 of us on the Satsang at this moment that have 9 absolutely unique perspectives on the whole. So no 2 of us are seeing, if you want to call reality out as what's out there, and that's the questionable part of this, but if you want to call that consensual reality, if you will, no 2 of us have the same viewpoint at all. And so from that's what creates the stories, the whole perceptual machine. So you're asking, how do I know if something is my perception or it's quote out there? Which is presuming that there's objects out there that move independently of your own perception with regard to your own life. That's not the case. It appears that way. And that's what's useful to see here in our conversation here is the difference between appearance and then what's really going on. And this is one of those cases, right? Where it appears that out here is just happening and happening to me. And many people would say it's random occurrence. But it's not. What comes in your field of perception, in terms of out there, is not a random effect. It's the exact flow of your energy pattern interacting out here. And so if you come up against something that's making you angry, the ego's perception, the stance will say, that person is making me angry. So it absolves itself of all responsibility whatsoever. That's what it wants. That's the projection mechanism. That's how wars start. It others. It creates a separation. It creates an other so it can get this responsibility for itself off itself. Mm-hmm. And then it bounces back out there as I'm a victim. And then people start to create experiences that they will identify as victim. But it's a perceptual thing.
Right.
So then the work is really not out there in any way, shape, or form. The work is in here. It's like, okay, I'm feeling uneasy about this thing in my life. Okay, let me see what is in me that wants to come up and be seen, felt, held, and released and healed. Because that thing out there that I am feeling this way about is showing me what's going on inside me.
That makes
Mirror
sense.
on the wall. And the mirror, the wall is out here entirely.
So our vibrations, so like if you're at a certain place, maybe a very low vibration, and you're perceiving something some way, then a lot of that is because of the vibration that you're in at that moment, that you would see it in a lower way, like a more negative, or like I'm a victim, or all that, right? So if you raise your vibration, that would change that.
Yes, that's right. If somebody's harboring a lot of anger, they're going to be walking into situations that reflect that at them. So here's another model that may help.
Okay.
Imagine in the very center of your being is just pure light, infinite power light, right? And you're putting on some glasses, and the glasses have all sorts of stuff in there. So the light now has to go through that. So it changes, the glasses is changing the nature of the light. And out there is a projection screen somewhere, okay? So then whatever's in those glasses, whatever makes up those lenses is going to determine what's getting projected out there. It's not their lenses as much as it's film. You know, this film has this resentment, this thing that happened to me at 4 years old, I'm still holding on to. It has this thing that I'm happy about. And so the light is now coming through the lens and projecting out there. But in this scenario I'm setting up, imagine you forgot you're wearing lenses. That's what's going on for most people. And so they walk around, and this is literally a dream state now, because what's going on is people are not perceiving reality directly, they're perceiving it through these perceptual filters. And therefore, what they're seeing is actually fundamentally not reality. Now, there's an interesting thing I'll read you in the Course in Miracles, which you guys know I've done a ton of work with, and I read it over and over again, this one thing, because it's so kind of incredible. It's the very beginning. It's a short thing from introduction. This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Now, what is that? It makes more sense when you figure out that what they're saying is the only thing that's real is love. that frequency, that vibration, that is reality. And when we let go of all the distortions that we're holding on to, or that the ego is holding on to, all that's left is love, because love's the only thing that is real. And so even if horrible things happen to people, and they do, the only thing those horrible things can actually damage and harm is the physical body. It cannot touch the soul. And so the idea that if love is the only thing that's real and nothing unreal exists, all those quote unquote bad things, the horrible things that are happening, which are done out of a disconnection from reality, which is to say disconnection from God, which is to say disconnection from love, is not actually real. Because the only thing that's real, ultimately, reality, is the infinite, with no beginning, no end, not in time, was never created, is never born, never dies. It's just this pure high frequency of, we give the word love. That's the only thing that sustains. Everything else will fall away. The body, the earth, the universe, everything else will eventually fall away. The only thing that is real is that which never falls away, and that is love. So that's where we come from. That's where we're heading back to. As we go through this dream. When you wake up from the dream, which is to say, you're experiencing that level of love more and more and more in your normal mode of being. That's the awakening. That's becoming lucid in the dream. That's starting to see through that the belief systems that are held by the culture are a fiction. That's starting to see that the perceptual systems of the culture that everybody agrees is absolute reality, you start to see through it. And as you see through it, you're becoming more lucid within the dream. And as you become more lucid within the dream, you start to see more, and you become more lucid. And then what's going on is you're still operating, you're still going to work, you're still driving the car, you're still doing your thing, but you're perceiving it from a much higher frequency, which cuts you free. This is the thing it dropped into me one night. I really understood it, and I'm experiencing it to be true. The higher your vibration, the more liberated your energy field is from the collective karma of the collective, of the culture. The higher you rise back into that alignment with the frequency of love, the more free you are of the belief systems of the culture. Because the belief systems reinforce perception, and that creates energy, and that moves it into your system, and then you start to feel the weight of those lower frequency beliefs. That's what actually makes up a lot of the culture. So it's recirculating itself through that, and that's what people are caught up. And this includes the entire belief system around aging. And that's, I'll go down that rabbit hole another day perhaps. But the idea being that we've grown up and lived through seeing people get older and dying, falling apart, and disease and all this stuff. And that, of course, the body follows this trajectory. David Hawkins, one of the key teachers who actually mapped out the levels of consciousness on a scale of 1 to 1,000, said that people are really worried about aging. What they really ought to be looking at are their belief systems around aging. And so where do we get fed from? What's the source of life? Through the dream. What's behind the dream? This force, this field, this of love. This is the life. This is the only true life. And as we open to this, it is what's energizing our cells. It is what's aligning our bodies. It is what continues to clear up through our heart and our psyche and the energy field, and clear it out until we are just like this transparent, fluid servant of however the will of love wants to play through you. And that then starts to be, that's what feeds your health. But you could see how if you have adopted, or to the degree we've internalized and essentially meshed with the dominant culture belief around health, that's what we're seeing happen. So this is another piece of, like, an example of as you return back more into the awakened state, and you listen and you allow the awakened state to guide you and move you, because it's through there that awareness is the awakened state. What is awakening but becoming aware within the dream, or having a lucid dream in awareness. And as the Buddhists say, awareness is corrective. So as we become lucid, the correction happens much faster in the mind. And the Course in Miracles says all healing is of the mind. And so you see how this whole thing starts to work.
So meditation would bring you back to that love, right? Because you're helping the energy to come through by clearing your mind and surrendering what may be blocking you. And so you allow that light and that love to come through you more. So if you do that more often, you'll be more strengthened in it, and you'll be able to connect more to it in life and have a better experience.
Yes. And the power of meditation fundamentally is it suppresses the network of the brain just the way psychedelics do, although at a gentler, slower pace. It suppresses what's called the default mode network, which is essentially where the ego operates from. And as it does that, your perception opens up, because you're literally moving into an expanded state through the meditation process. And in the expanded state, you could start to see the thoughts instead of being caught in the thoughts. And that's the difference that makes the difference. Because if you could see it, you can't be it. And the moment you recognize, I am not the mind or the thoughts, that's a game changer. And so meditation is one way of getting there. The other way, because if all you did was sit like this for 5 minutes a day, it would take a pretty long time to move. It's a meditation in action. You're in a meditative, what is a meditative state? Really, it's not sitting with your legs crossed. It's kind of opening up and stepping into awareness and being with what is, and simply going, and letting the deeper wisdom speak, essentially. Mm-hmm. Okay, just do that when you're walking around. In other words, you know from your seated practice what it's like to be in an expanded awareness space. Just allow that to come in your more. And if there's any belief, because many people believe, I have to do this. I can't do it while I'm driving. I can't do it while I'm working. I can't do it while I'm shopping. That's just a belief. I'm telling you, you could do it in every moment of every day, because most of the time that's where I live. And what goes on in that mode then is, again, awareness is corrective. So the things in the energy field that want to come up to be seen, felt, held, released will do so in the flow of your day. And instead of reacting, because you're merged into the ego's thought system, you're in the awareness state. Awareness is corrective. Some interaction with somebody came up and some thing of anger came up in you. Instead of reacting, you're in this expanded state while you're feeling it. So, okay, good. Thank you for the healing. That part of the energy field has just been purified, which is to say reharmonized back into the master resonance. in alignment with the whole. In other words, that energy that was operating as if it was separate from the whole now is all of a sudden in harmony with the whole again. And that part of your energy field now is in alignment, and now you never have to draw that kind of anger in that way again. It may diminish, you may run into, because some of this is a process, it's about how quickly and efficiently can we allow experience to come through and to let it go all at the same time. That's the flow state. So until, you're where you're at, and it's perfect. It's like, not like you missed out, it's not like you're going too slow, it's not like the rest of the class is leaving you behind. That's all ego nonsense. You're perfectly where you're at in the process. And so you just invite, be receptive. By the way, I love the Yogananda SRF gurus with the candles behind you. There's Yogananda behind me.
I know, that helps me.
Oh yeah. So anyhow, does that all make sense?
It does, it really does.
It's great. And so that's it, Dina. I mean, I feel like you know this stuff. And so take tonight's satsang and just walk it into your life and watch what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready for this level.
Yeah, I feel like you're ready for this level, which is why the questions came bubbling up in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Really good. Where are we on time? How are we doing? Pretty good. Yeah, it's like, okay, what am I going to say tonight? And then it just flows. I'm watching how it all pieces together. If this was all just coming from one tradition, then you can call it dogma. But we weaved through 4 or 5 different traditions tonight, and you see the consistency and how they all play together. And to me, I do that on purpose because if truth is truth, I have to see it across different modes. And that filter, that requirement, acts as a filter to drop out the dogma. You can pretty easily see what each tradition is carrying that is not necessarily serving the core vibrational truth of that tradition. What to do? Got a couple of choices. Could put on this Eckhart Tolle piece. Anybody have anything else they want to share in the meantime?
I could say something.
Yeah, please.
As far as working with the animal kingdom, which is very, very what we would call enlightened, in the way that they are totally present. And it is something that the animals have taught me so much about being present, and they go through all kinds of different, what we would call torture as humans. And they are so forgiving because they say that they can only be in present time or else they cannot exist. And so they have this need that they have to be in present time. When they are our pets, they have more of a leeway. But if they're out in nature, they say if they're not in present time, they actually get eaten or they get left behind because it changes the vibration of the whole band of animals that are together. And so we're talking about, even in my trip to Thailand, that there were elephants, water buffalo, dogs, cats. Cats were in a separate section away from the dogs and everything else, but still they were all part of this beautiful community, and they were all completely in sync. And even the birds came in, and the pigeons were talking with the animals, and each animal had its role. And so it was a very, very beautiful example of all these rescued animals that have been through all kinds of crazy torture things. and how they were able to heal each other just by being present. And that just by being present that's love. Because they would always say we live in love, and that's what we are here to teach. And this was the same even when I went into the ocean and dove in the ocean and spoke with the animals there. I had been there 22 years prior and diving, and it was spectacular then. And now it's a whole different scene. Like it's unrecognizable as far as what it was. And I asked them, I said, well, what is the one thing that you have to say to the people with two legs? And they said, we have hope. And the amount of love by just being present and being at the same vibration, which was just being present, which equals love. I mean, I didn't want to get out of the water. I didn't want to get out of that sanctuary I was in. And even I just went and saw the wild mustangs and talked with them because they called me over there too. And same thing, once I met them at their vibration, they're just like, you don't have to worry, because I have 20 years of clairvoyant psychic work. And they're just like, drop it, just be present. And it was just like, whoa. It's like, it took me a while even, and that was the same thing with all the animals that I went to. They said, just be present, don't do all these fun things. And the way that the animals were able to heal, even that when I was with the wild mustangs, I was able to work with one Mustang who gets to run wild on 44 acres, but also he's a domesticated Mustang at the same time, somewhat. And so it was really interesting to see the difference of him being wild and then domesticated, and where the tie-ups were about that. And so I was just being present with him, and horses release and they do all this yawning and all kinds of stuff, and people do acupuncture and massage and chiropractor work and all this kind of stuff for these animals to get release. And so I was just standing there in the same presence, just being totally present, being totally grounded. And this horse was just like yawning and just like, oh my God, getting all these releases that we do all this physical stuff to them. And it's just because I matched their presence of being present. And that's where I find when you need to heal, everything comes up when you're ready for it in that presence. So it's powerful. It's super powerful.
It's super powerful. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's well, because the presence is the infinite, and we, for whatever reason, have this ability to move our attention, and I've been really getting clear on this lately, that awareness, attention, intention is the cornerstone of tuning yourself up. And that there are two fundamental streams in which thoughts arise. And the thought system of the ego and the thought system of God, love. And both of these thought systems are coherent unto themselves. In other words, everything in the ego's thought system makes sense to its thought system. Everything in the thought system of God makes sense to its thought system. But if you were to turn these into a Venn diagram and to show where there's commonality, there is none. These are exclusive different frequencies, and it makes a lot of sense because the high frequency, the love frequency or the truth, doesn't fight with the false. It doesn't even see anything other than truth. And so there can't be an overlap because the false doesn't actually exist vibrationally. However, we, as these neurological, psycho-spiritual neurological units, somehow have this miraculous design where, and I recognize this, I'll say this in first person and it applies to everyone, I am the nexus of heaven and earth. I am the nexus between the, thank you. I am the nexus between heaven and earth. You are where literally the non-physical and the physical meet. Right here in the center of this point that I'll call I now. As such, this is the point where the energy flows back into these realities. It's the energy that's creating. It now comes through this thing called Eric. Eric has the ability to choose which of these two thought systems to put the attention onto. If Eric is unconscious, Eric is going to get pulled into the dominant thought system in this plane, which is a thought system of the ego, the thought system of fear. So as long as Eric is asleep, Eric is just in it. No choice. Caught in the suffering. But the moment Eric wakes up in any amount, what that is to say, all of a sudden is becoming aware. It's the first place where all of a sudden consciousness has started to pull itself out of the hypnosis of the ego. In that moment, there's a choosing function at the deeper part of consciousness that comes online. That choosing function gets to choose, so awareness is where it comes from, gets to choose which of these two thought systems to put the attention on. Awareness gets to choose. The intention is where that goes. When you have an affirmative attention for love, intention for love, the awakened choosing function will plug your attention into the thought system of love. And now that's flowing through your heaven and earth neurology nexus point into this physical reality, and it is creating the happy dream. If it's not plugged into that, it gets plugged into the ego thought system of the unhappy dream and creates more of that. And so I don't have to put any effort into making anything happen out here. Again, everything I'm saying about I is just because it's easier to say. I'm talking about you too. We don't have to make any effort into changing anything outside, because it's like looking into a mirror, forgetting you're looking at a mirror and saying, I don't like where that chair is, and you try to move it. Ratsa ruck. Because what's that mirror? It's just a projection of where our attention is in the state of the vibration. So the work is in choosing love inside ourselves over and over, and becomes stronger and stronger, because as you do, it lightens out everything that is unlike itself, right? Because the only truth is love. Everything else is a fiction. Therefore, anything else will vaporize, which is to say, get reabsorbed back into love.
Thank you.
And so being on this takes care of it all. So basically, all you really got to pay attention to is where your attention is, and choose love. And specifically, especially because it's like, well, I'm feeling angry, and okay, I'll choose love. Yeah, it's pretty obvious, but when you're feeling fear, sometimes it gets so strong it makes you forget to choose love. And so it's in the face of fear because everything else that's out of whack is really all a manifestation of fear in one form or another. Bad behavior, abuse of animals, abuse of the environment, out of control greed, the whole thing. It's all just fear run amok. And so all you got to do is look at fear or love and make your choice. So it's really simple. That will change your vibration. And then that will change what you're projecting into the dream. And then you're in happy dream mode. And you're also resonating at a higher frequency. And so you're in an ascension mode.
If you see someone that you love deeply and they're young and they're in this ego, like driven, like everything's ego and narcissistic,
Mhm.
And if you say something because, you know, you're trying to help them, which probably doesn't work when they're that tangled up.
You got that right.
So it's like, can you just, you know, I mean, I try to project love from a meditative place to that person's soul, but is there anything else that you could suggest? Because it breaks my heart to see it happen.
Yeah. The one thing I could suggest that helped a lot is it's really essential that you allow everybody to have their own journey, including making all the what you perceive as mistakes, errors, sources of suffering. You can't save somebody from their lessons. And in fact, to do so is a certain form of spiritual violence or spiritual harm, because these are not bad occurrences. This is part of their curriculum. We don't awaken in spite of our curriculum. We awaken through our curriculum. And so if somebody's curriculum includes being narcissistic and using people and doing all these things, don't worry. The reflection is going to come back at them for them to learn it one way or another, whether it's in this incarnation or not. And so, to the degree, now, look, let me put a caveat on this. I would say that there's no more difficult challenge to letting somebody have their own journey than when it's your kid. And so I've had to do that, you know, and with Melissa, Wendy's, I'm sure Wendy had to do that in various ways. We've talked about it. It's painful sometimes when you know they're going to walk into a situation that's going to cause pain. So you love them in there, because what they're going to need more than anything else to carry them through that is love. I mean, if I feel an opening, I may say something, but if I'm coming from a place of fear where, no, then what am I sending them?
Be afraid.
Right. So that's how I pay attention to how the vibration is working in me, right? I have to own the fear that's coming up, because that's some of the scarier things at times. The scarier the feeling, the more the ego wants to project it out of itself, which means it goes unconscious, stays in the shadow, and you don't get to see it because you've been distracted in some form. It plays a kabuki dance on your consciousness. And so a major game changer is the willingness to feel anything and everything. Major game changer. Because once you set that and you hold that, you are in alignment with truth, and now you have the power of the infinite helping you in that. So not just helping you to have feelings come up for the purpose of healing, but to give you all the love and vibrational everything you need to heal that part of the being. So the willingness, and the willingness is a very powerful term, because if I say, you start, allow feelings to come, you may not be ready. No, just some part of it goes, what are you, out of your mind? So that's a little bit too much, perhaps. So we come back one step and we say, well, are you willing to allow feelings to come? And if you get to a yes of that, the Course says, all it takes is a little willingness, and then love can come in and do the rest. So all you gotta do is go, and it's pretty, it's much easier to go to willingness.
Yeah.
And then I've concluded that willingness is far more powerful than willfulness.
Yes, indeed.
It is. I think we all have experienced it, right?
Okay, thank you.
That's good. Good discussion.
Good channel.
It's a good channel.
Thank you.
the channel is us. Right? I mean, I'm going to rip off Ram Dass now. He says Ram stands for rent-a-mouth. And he goes, he's just a mouthpiece for what the us wants to say back to us right now. That's what this is. Anytime any one of us says something, it's the us speaking to itself, because there's really only one.
That speaks to me of being willing to be here and be open to it.
Yeah.
There's no resistance here at all.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really glad I finally got here.
That's true. You've been coming in from Zoom all the.
Yeah.
It does feel different here, doesn't it?
Oh gosh,
It's
yeah.
really nice to being here. Yeah.
Still
Vibration.
willing,
Yeah.
showing up.
Vibration is strong. Well, you're coming up in August, Dina, so we'll schedule. Let's lock down the schedule. Maybe what we'll do is we'll see if we could do a satsang for the Monday night you're here.
Okay.
Be here.
Okay. All right. That'd be great. I'd love that.
Yeah. So just sit in this. We all made the choice before we took birth for this path, the way it unfolded for us. Thank goodness we did. We get to do this together and hang out together. And I don't mean just this group of us here tonight. I mean like us and all whom we're connected to at this level of vibration. Now the fact is, we're all connected to everyone at this level of vibration, but not everyone can perceive it or articulate it or feel it or allow it into their awareness. That's okay.
That's an interesting thought. If you're not awake, if you're willing to be awake, then there you are.
And that's an interesting thing, because you can't awaken yourself. So who's willing to awaken? If you're asleep, you don't know you're asleep. It's an interesting question. What is it that awakens? And so what I'm saying is that, like when I had that first awakening when I was like 20 or so, I said, I could not cause that any more than a flower could cause itself to open. There was something deeper, something bigger than the personality, something bigger than everything we thought that we were, that's running the show.
It wanted to come out.
And that's consciousness itself that's awakening through this locale called Eric, through this one called David and Ray and Monica and Wendy and Catherine and Dina. It's the one consciousness that's turning on inside this thing, this being. And so the question is really, what is us? What am I? That's a very fundamental, important question that Ramana Maharshi uses as the central tenet of all the spiritual work. Because asking that at that deeper level, not the intellectual level, brings forth the experience. So what is it that's awakening? Through what? As what? This is what's going on. It's like, think about the last dream that you knew you had. Think about all the people, the entity that were in the dream. Were they real? What were they? They were just a projection of your own mind. All the seemingly separate entities running around that seemed really real while you were in it was nothing more than a projection of your mind. Now, imagine this, and all that we think we are is just a projection of the next level of super mind.
certainly feels good.
Feel that. Feel the connection, the flow of all that. That we're characters in a dream. But what is we? The separate self doesn't actually exist. It's not real. It's a phantom in the dream. It's a creation, a projection of the mind into the dream state. Well, that means when you become lucid in the dream, you're a normal, what we call dream, what's going on all of a sudden? You recognize both the dreaming and you are the dreamer. Now take that to this level. That we've been so hypnotized into the character of the dream itself that it feels predominantly what we are. But open your mind to the possibility that simultaneously we could become aware that we are the dreamer. And what does that do to the experience as you walk around in 3D land?
Frees you.
All of a sudden 3D land feels kind of flat
It frees you.
because you're living on 4, 5, 6, 7 multiple levels. Your 5 senses are still focused in 3D, but your perceptual system, which is not of the 5 senses, is all of a sudden opening up into a multi-dimensional perceptual space as you go through the dream state. That's what's going on.
Gotcha.
That's the game changer. Being asleep is completely being enmeshed with the character. That's what being asleep is. That's most of the state of the world. However, something, and make no mistake about it, the signal to awaken. Alarm clock is too harsh a word. I don't like alarm clocks, but something wakens, when it's time to wake up, something wakes you up. That signal, whatever that is, we've heard it because it's operating in our experience. But it's not like there's a chosen group that hear it. This signal is being broadcast throughout consciousness of the totality. So every separate self, every character in the dream on this plane is getting the signal, but many are either choosing to ignore it or are too dense too deep in the density of their vibration to be able to hear it. Too much noise. Ego is very noisy. So there's too much noise and they don't hear it. Some are saying, I hear it, but no. And we're seeing the behavior of that in all the crazy shit going on in the world right now. That is the resistance to the light in action. So we don't have to fix the world. We act in the world the way we're called to act in the world. This is my way of acting in the world. Once in a while I'm protesting also. Some people are working hard every day at the ACLU. You're called to what you're called to do. Because as we do that, then we're participating. We're like nodes of resonance within the field to bring that higher vibration in and to hold the totality of what's going on here right now. Some kind of an awakening is absolutely accelerating. It's undeniable if you're paying attention. How it plays out, I have no idea. But the thing is, as you recognize that what you really are, then you know you're safe. Love is the source of safety. It's the only one. Then vibrationally, you are part of an enormous field of coherent energy, and that's the source of safety. Because like attracts like. And so while the world may be going crazy, again, the higher vibration is freer of the collective karma. Maybe not entirely. There's very few beings that are that, like these characters behind me up on the altar. Every one of them was running at level 1000, therefore completely independent of the collective karma. Those teachers come to help us. But we're somewhere in between there. And so we have a certain level of effect still of the collective. Obviously we need air to breathe. but we get increasingly free of it. It's an ascendance, a transcendence, and yet, in order to really participate fully, you have to be fully embodied. That'll be a conversation for another time. That's the other piece of this. You have to be fully human and fully divine simultaneously to the best of your ability. And that's the sweet spot. That's where your energy is optimized and everything can move pretty effortlessly through your field to make things happen. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's sit quietly for 10 or so minutes and just sit in this and let it.
Share one thing?
Yeah, go ahead,
Idea.
Ray.
In relationship to like what you were saying about the mind projecting the reality,
Yeah.
something that's really fascinating to me in a dream is that you can surprise yourself in the suspense and mystery. So part of your mind is creating this dream, and the other part is observing it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the dream, you don't know what's going to happen, or there's intrigue, or there's mystery, or there's surprise. You don't know what's going to happen. There's part of you that's receiving it, and you don't know what's going to happen. And it's something, you hope this happens in your dream, and then it happens, or doesn't happen, or, you know what I'm saying? Like this part.
That sounds like there's a
flying it.
lucid part operating within the dream.
And then reality, like you're talking about projecting reality,
Yeah.
but there's a part that's projecting it, and part that's
observing it.
observing it, and
Right.
not aware of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that your mind can create something, and then the other part of your mind is surprised by it.
Yeah.
You know? So there's mystery, there's intrigue.
Oh, well, I can shoot you a great podcast about the split mind, which
Okay.
is the research that was done when they had to cut the corpus callosum in the brain. And so you see how truly
Left and right.
independent the left and the right brain lives are. And when that channel is not available for them to communicate with each other, some interesting, strange things happen.
Right.
And that's when I learned, when I was listening to that podcast, I'm going to cut it to the chase. I learned that the left brain, the left mind, the irrational storytelling mind is a bullshit machine.
Yeah.
That the feeling comes up, and the feelings are like the right brain is all holistic. The right brain is holistic and knows the whole. And the left brain is very tactical, very narrow banded, and they normally are communicating with you to some degree. But when that channel is cut and this person is shown a picture of something that makes them cry intensely, and then you ask the same person, so that whole thing, the channel coming through the picture, the emotion, it's all right brain communication. But then you ask them, what's making you cry? And that question goes into the left brain. It makes up a total bullshit story.
Which is your feeling.
And so the moment I saw that cut me free big time in some way, because I recognized that when a feeling would come up in me, my mind was frantically trying to make sense of it and making up stories about it.
Bingo.
And I'm trying to track the story, thinking that if I could go through that vector, I could fix this thing that my mind is calling a problem, where the problem is because I don't like what I'm feeling. When in fact, that whole chain is a trap. Because the initial story was bullshit. Even if it correctly recounted something that happened 40 years ago. Complete fiction, hallucination. And once you recognize that, game over. No longer do you ever believe it. Because it's not telling you the truth. And so what was the truth? Just feel. This feeling is telling you the truth right now, of the moment.
Right.
And everything flows then from there. Presence. We're back to presence. Everything is that. Because the only true moment, the only true reality is here and now. Ram Dass was right, Neem Karoli Baba was right. The animals are right. The only true reality is now. Because where does the past and the future live?
in the present? No.
No,
Mind.
No.
in your mind.
Mind.
It doesn't exist. It's a hallucination. The only true reality is now, here, presence. And all you have to be, going back to what Monica laid out, all you have to do is be present. Because presence is love, and that's it. Presence is awareness. Presence is love. It takes care of everything. It tunes you up. It clears out what needs to get cleared out. It will bring you the money that you need. First, it'll bring you the fear that you're holding so you can take a good look at it and say, oh, that's just fear. And then hand that over to Source and say, thank you. You can't push the fear away and say, give me the money. Because what you're saying is fear is actually what's creating this situation. Right? So you let yourself feel what wants to be felt. No feeling can harm you. The only thing that can harm you is the resistance to the feeling. No feeling can harm you. The ego says these feelings will destroy you if you let them come. No feeling can harm you. What's harming you in those cases, what's causing the suffering, is the resistance to the feeling.
Bingo.
Which is in the form of fear. And it's all noise from the ego channel. I love how this is all tied together. You can't pull on one thread before seeing it all move. Okay. Very simple. Sit in this field that we feel. This presence. And simply let it be with you. Let yourself be as this. Thank you for being here.